Welcome back to my channel, Economics Simplified with Miss Ellen. If you've been following my videos, we are on factors of production. I've been explaining the types of factors of production. We've explained factors of production, which is land, then capital as a factor of production, entrepreneurship as a factor of production. So we are on the last type of factor of production, which is labor. So today our topic is labor as a factor of production. Please, if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe, you like, you share, and you leave a comment below. So let's define what labor is. Labor as a factor of production. It is any physical or mental effort that helps in the production of goods and services. So the underlying word here will be either a physical effort, which is also known as physical strength, or the use of manpower to produce goods and services, or the use of mental effort or mental strength, or the use of the brain in producing goods and services. So that is labor. Then we move to types of labor. We have two types of labor, which is that of the skilled labor and we have the unskilled labor. So let's define who a skilled labor is. The skilled labor is any labor who has undergone through certain form of training and the person is also well educated. And then with a skilled labor, they use more of their mental effort or strength than that of the physical effort or strength in production. So that is a skilled labor. A typical example, we have that of the teacher, we have the doctor, and that of the accountant. So you realize that these three type of labor, they use more of their mental effort or strength than their physical effort or strength to produce goods and services. Then we have the second type of labor, which is known as unskilled labor. So let's see who an unskilled labor is. They are also those labor that have either no education or they have little form of education, and then with this type of labor, they use more of their physical effort or strength in production than the mental effort in production. An example, we have that of the messenger, we have the cleaner, and then the hairdresser. Now take notes. We are not saying that the unskilled labor, they are not trained or they do not have any educational background. But what we are saying is they have just a little form of educational background, or they have undergone through a very little form of training. So that is the difference between the skilled labor and then the unskilled labor. Now we look at the characteristics or the features of labor. The first is that the reward of labor, it's wages or salary. Every labor, it's working, having in mind that at the end of the day or the month, they are going to receive a form of income. That income is what is known as either wages or salary. Then labor, it's geographically and then occupationally mobile. What this means is to say that labor is geographically mobile. It means labor can move from one place to the other to work. Then to say that labor is occupationally mobile, it means that a labor can easily change the job to another job. For example, me being a teacher, if I want to change my occupation to, let's say, from teaching to being a doctor, I have the ease to do that. All that I need to do is I further the education, then I become a doctor. So it means I have been able to change my occupation to another occupation. Then labor is not fixed in supply, as we have that of what land being fixed in supply. We are saying that labor, it's not fixed in supply, meaning that labor can either increase or decrease depending on the size of the population. Then labor varies in quality. What this means is that labor can upgrade his or herself. In other words, let's say if you are on skilled labor, You can further your education, you add more value, you add more qualities to your experience, and then you become a skilled labor. So labor varies in quality. Then labor controls the other factors of production, being it the land, the capital. It is labor who controls it to put them into use. Then let's look at certain concepts in labor as a factor of production. The first is supply of labor. So let's explain what the supply of labor is. It is the total number of hours persons in labor force are prepared to work at a given wage rate within a period of time. So the underlining word here will be the total number of hours. Then another definition is that it is the number of hours made available by labor for production at a particular wages within a period of time. So what this means is, let's assume that as a teacher, I'm supposed to be in class to teach from the hours of, let's say, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that will be my supply of labor, meaning that within this period of time, that is when I have to be very productive, impart knowledge to my students, or that, as I said, you have to be productive. So when we talk about the supply of labor, we are referring to the number of hours in which labor will have to produce goods and service or be productive. Now let's talk about factors that influences supply of labor. Factors that influences supply of labor. The first factor is population size. Now we know that whenever the size of the population increases, it means that the supply of labor will also increase. Then when population size decreases, the supply of labor will also decrease. So population size is a factor influencing the supply of labor. Then we have age distribution. Now, when we talk about the age distribution, we are talking about the categories of ages in a population or a country. Now, we have three categories of ages. The first is that of the dependents or the dependent rate, which it's between the ages of, that is 0 to 15 or 16. That is the dependent rate. Then we have the working class, which is from the ages of 16 to 60 plus. That is 16 to 60 years. Then we have that of the aged, which is 60 plus. Now, if you are in a country where majority of your population falls within the ages of 16 to 60 years, then it means that you have a working class, meaning the supply of labor would increase. But where majority of your population falls within the ages of, that is 0 to 15 or the 60 plus, then realize that it will affect your supply of labor negatively. Then we have religious and then cultural beliefs. Now, certain religion or certain cultures does not permit women in society to work. So when you have it this way, it means it's going to affect your supply of labor negatively, meaning that in such religion, it is only men who are working. But then if you have a religion where both women and then men are working, then it means it will have a positive impact on your supply of labor. Then we have wage rate, the wage rate. Now, whenever labor is being motivated or whenever labor is given a higher wages, realize that the labor is willing to work for a longer period of time, meaning that a higher wage rate will have a positive impact on the supply of labor, making it to increase. But then a lower wages will not motivate labor to work for a longer period of time, meaning that it will have a negative impact on the supply of labor, which will reduce. Then we have the number of holidays that exist in a country. Now, if the number of holidays are too much in the country, it will have a negative impact on the supply of labor, meaning that the number of hours the labor is working will reduce. due to what the number of holidays in the country. But where you have a country where you have little or less holidays, then it means that your supply of labor will increase. Then we have conditions of service. If a particular work or service, you have favorable or good conditions of service, such as you are being given accommodation as a labor, your children are given scholarship or free education, your utility bills, such as your light bill, your water bills, are being paid for you, your TNTs are provided, then it helps or it motivates you, the labor, to work for a longer period of time. Therefore, it means the supply of labor is going to increase. But where the conditions of services are so poor, then it means the labor wouldn't even be willing to work overtime or work for a longer period of time, meaning that supply of labor is going to reduce. Then we have political instability. In a country where we have coup, we have that of war, tribal wars, it means that people are even scared to come out to work for a longer period of time. Why? Because the country is not it's not stable, or there is no peace in the country. But where we have political stability, it means people are going to work freely for a longer period of time, meaning that the supply of labor is going to increase when we have political stability. Then we talk about another concept which is known as labor force or workforce. The labor force is the same as the workforce. This refers to all the active people who are employed and those who are employable in a country. Or it refers to the active people in a country who are engaged in economic activities. So those who are into economic activities are those who are employed, and then those capable of working but are not eligible in any economic activities, or they are the unemployed people. So the labor force comprises of the people in the country who are working, and then those who are willing to work but then they are not having any job to do. That is the labor force of a country. Okay, now let's talk about factors that influences the labor force of a country. The first is population size, or the size of the population. Now, a higher population size will mean a higher labor force. Likewise, a lower population size will mean a lower population force of the country. Then the next factor, we have age distribution. Now, with the age distribution, this is where we said we have three categories of ages in every population or every country. We have that of the age between 0 to 16, which is the dependent rate. Then we have 16 to 60, which is the working class, and then 60 plus, which is that of the agent. Now, in a country, if majority of your population falls within the 0 to 16 or the 60 plus, it means it will have a negative impact on your labor force, meaning that the labor force is going to reduce. But whereby majority of your population fall within the working class or 16 to 60 years, then it means it will have a positive impact on your labor force, meaning that the labor force is going to increase. Then we have official school leaving age. The official school leaving age. If you are in a country where by the time you complete school, you are in the age of, let's say, 30 to 35, it means you have fewer you have fewer years to work, meaning that the labor force of the country is going to reduce. Why? Because majority of your years are being spent in school. When you are schooling, obviously you don't work. But then where the official school leaving age is, let's say, either 20 or 25, then it means you have a longer time to work, meaning that the labor force of the country is going to increase. Then we have the religious and then the cultural beliefs. Some religions and some cultural beliefs are that women do not work. So if you have that religion or culture, then it's going to have a negative impact, or it will affect the labor force of the country. But whereby the religion is such that both women and then men are both women and men are working, then it means that the labor force of the country is going to increase. Then we talk about migration policies. Now we know that migration simply means the movement of persons from one place to the other. A typical example of a migration policy is where we have emigration policies and then we have immigration policies. Now let me differentiate between the emigration and then the immigration. The emigration simply means people moving from their home country to settle permanently in another person's country. An example is Ghanaians moving from the country to settle in, let's say, US or UK. That is emigration. Then immigration simply means people also leaving their home country to come and settle permanently in another country. A typical example, somebody leaving Nigeria permanently to come and settle in Ghana to make a living. That is immigration. So if a country's immigration policy is very weak, it means that people can easily leave the country. That is, people are leaving Ghana to settle permanently in another country. With that situation, it will affect our labor force, meaning that the labor force of Ghana is going to reduce. Why? Because people are leaving the country. Then whereby we have weak immigration policy in the country, meaning that a lot of people can easily come into the country. That will be a plus for Ghana as a country. Why? Because it will lead to an increase in our labor force because people are coming to join us. So that is how migration policy will affect the labor force of a country. Then we have the proportion of disabled. In a country where you realize that majority of your population, they are disabled due to certain circumstances beyond our control, then it means that the labor force of the country is going to reduce. But whereby you have able men in the country, then obviously the labor force will increase. Then we have the working age and then the retiring age. Now, when you have a lot of people that is moving to their retiring age, that is majority of your labor force or majority of the population are within, let's say, 58, 59, then you realize that your labor force will be affected negatively. But whereby majority of the population are within the working class, then it means your labor force will increase. Now we have another concept, which is efficiency of labor. Efficiency of labor. Let's explain what efficiency of labor is. It is the ability of labor to produce a maximum number of output of a given resource at a time without a fall in the quality of the product. Now, when we talk about efficiency of a labor, if the labor is given a limited resource, how well they are able to produce maximum output from the given resource within a period of time without the resource losing its value. It's what it's meant by efficiency of a labor. If you are given resource, how well you are able to put it into good use in order to maximize your output. Then we have factors that influences the efficiency of labor. The first is education and then training. Now, a labor who is well educated, who is well trained, will obviously be more efficient than a labor who hasn't attained any education or any training. Then we have working environment. Now, I realize that certain environments are not conducive enough for a labor to be efficient. Example is an environment where ventilation is very poor. It will affect the efficiency of a labor. But in an environment where we have good ventilation, then it means that the labor will be very efficient to produce goods and services. Then we have motivation. Motivation, very important. When a labor is being motivated, the motivation can come in different form. It can come in a form of you giving your workers allowance. That motivates the labor or the worker to be efficient. But then where the labor is not being motivated, then it means the labor wouldn't be efficient enough to produce or increase your production. Then we have the practice of division of labor and then specialization. The practice of division of labor and specialization. Now, the division of labor is simply the breakdown of a production process. Then we are saying that division of labor leads to specialization. So where a worker or in an organization, they practice division of labor and then specialization, it will make the worker or the labor to be more efficient as compared to where there is no practice of division of labor and then specialization. Then we have good management staff and then supervision. When workers are being supervised or when workers have good management staff, then it means the worker will be very efficient. Why? Because constantly you are being supervised. But a labor who is left not supervised, the labor does things anyhow. In other words, the labor wouldn't be efficient. So the good management staff and supervision, it's a factor affecting the efficiency of labor. Then we have availability and then quality of other factors of production. Now, a labor will never be efficient, or let's assume that an efficient labor wouldn't be efficient if the other factors he or she has to use to work, it's also not efficient. No matter how good you, the labor, you are, if your land is not efficient, if your capital is not efficient, if the entrepreneur is not efficient, then there is no way you, the labor, will also be efficient. So the efficiency of the other factors of production will help the labor to also be very efficient to work and then produce goods and services. Then we have welfare services. When a labor is being given a good welfare service, such as you are given accommodation, you are given TNT, you are given, let's say you are being fed daily at your workplace. It's a motivation on its own for the labor to be very efficient. But when these welfare services are not provided, then it means that the labor wouldn't be efficient. Then we have the health status of the worker. If the worker is very healthy, then it means that you also be more efficient. But where a worker is always falling sick, you are not healthy, then it means that you can't be efficient as a labor. Then we look at another concept, which is mobility of labor. Mobility of labor. It refers to the ability of labor to move freely from one geographical area to another geographical area, or from occupation to another occupation. That is mobility of labor. So it means that we have two movements of labor. It's either the labor is moving from one geographical area to another geographical area, or from one occupation to another occupation. Now, let's talk about the types of mobility of labor. We have two types of mobility of labor. We have that of the geographical mobility of labor, then we have occupational mobility of labor. So let's define what geographical mobility of labor is. It is the ability of labor to move freely from one geographical area to another geographical area, or from one place to another place. That is geographical mobility of labor. Then we talk about occupational mobility of labor. It also refers to the ability of labor to move freely from one job to another job. A typical example, we have that of a teacher who wants to become, let's say, a nurse. So you are moving from one occupation to another occupation. Now, let's explain the factors affecting geographical mobility of labor. With the factors, we have the positive factors and we have the negative factors. So let's talk about the positive factors. The first is high wages elsewhere. The reason why a labor will move from one place to another place. The reason why a labor will move from one place to another place to continue the same work is due to the fact that elsewhere the person will be receiving a higher wages. Therefore, that will motivate you to move from one place to another place. Then we have location of industries. Every labor will want to move to a place where there are industries around. Why? Because we know one of the benefits of being located or being that is you staying around where we have industries is that at that place you have good transport services such as good roads. The network is very good. You have good electricity. We have good that is infrastructural facilities. So everyone wants to relocate to a place where we have industries or factories around. Then we have infrastructure and then social facilities. Now, a labor will want to move or change his or her location to another place due to the fact that there are so many infrastructures or social facilities around. So that is why a labor will want to move from one place to another place. Then we have political and then tribal reasons. The reason why maybe you are leaving your present situation or your present location to another place is due to the fact that maybe where you are currently staying, there is no political stability or there are tribal wars. So you want to relocate to another place where you can have your peace of mind, where there are political stabilities. Then we have traditional and then social factors. We have some people, because they want to move away from families or the family is stressing them, they want to relocate to another place where they will have their freedom, they can live an independent life. Now let's explain the negative factors influencing geographical mobility of labor. We have the cost of moving. Now, with the negative factors, that is the factors that hinders a labor from not moving from one place to another place. The first is the cost of moving. Now, if you are relocating to another place, we know how costly it is. That is moving yourself together with the whole family. If you have a family, your luggage, everything. So if you don't have that money, or if you don't have the moving cost, then it means that it limits you from moving from one place to the other. Then we have interruption in education. Maybe in your present location, you are schooling there. So you moving or relocating to another place will interrupt with your education. Since you don't want that interruption, then it's better you stay where you are. Then we have traditional and then social factors. We have some people, they have certain kind of bond with their family. It's difficult for them to leave their families behind. So because of that, they don't move at all. Why? Because they still want to keep that social bond. Then we have accommodation problem. You moving from one place to the other, you need to get money to rent another place. So if that money is not there, if it's difficult for you to find another accommodation, then it means you remain where you are. Then we have language and then beliefs. In other words, language barrier. You are moving to a place where you don't understand their language. Communication will become very difficult for you. So due to that, then let me stay where I am. Then we have the age of the worker. Now, if a worker is nearing, let's say, their retiring age, they will soon go on pension, then there is no need for you to change your location to go and work at another place due to the age factor. Now we look at the factors affecting occupational mobility of labor. With these factors too, we have the positive factors and we have the negative factors. So we look at that of the positive factors first. With the positive factors, we have higher wages in other occupation. So with the positive factors, we are talking about what will make a labor to change his or her job. That is what will make a teacher later become a doctor. The first factor, we are talking about higher wages in other occupations. Now, if I realize that maybe doctors are receiving more salary than that of a teacher, then it's better I change my location by undergoing through certain training or education. Then we have the prestige, we have prestigious reasons or the prestige attached to certain kinds of jobs. Example, everybody will be proud to be called a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, what have you. So in your present job, if it is not all that prestigious and then you want that prestige to be attached to you, then it means you are changing your job to another job, which is more prestigious. Then we have the irrelevance of the work or low demand. A particular work you are doing, the demand for that work is very low. Therefore, you are not getting any profit, you are not getting income. Then it means you move to a more, that is a work or an occupation which the demand is very high. If demand is very high, it means your profit or your income will also be high. Now let's look at that of the negative factors. That is the factors which will hinder a labor to change from one job to another job. We have the cost of retraining. Now, if you want to join another occupation, maybe you are a teacher, you want to become a doctor or a nurse or let's say a lawyer, you need to undergo certain forms of training. And then we know the training wouldn't be free. So if you don't have that money to be retrained, then it means you are going to remain in your present job. Then we have trade union restrictions. Now, certain occupation, you cannot easily enter into it. A typical example is that of the lawyers or the medical field. For you to become a lawyer, it means you have to undergo through their system. After that, you have to write an exams. If you pass the exam before you'll be accepted to join the bar or what have you. So it means that all the stress, all the things you go through, I mean, people are not able to stand or people are not able to go through the stress. Therefore, it's limited in them to join the bar. Then we have that of the doctors. We know you have to, that is the long training, they get trained for about 6 or 7 years. So it means all this period of time, I mean, it's a whole stress for people to join that occupation. So you realize that we are few of the doctors or few of the lawyers as compared to other occupations. Then we have age limits. There are certain occupations when you are joining, they give you a particular age limit. So if you're above it, then it means that will be a negative factor for you changing your occupation. Then we have abilities or attitude. With this, we are talking about how talented you are, or maybe you have a particular gift. For example, you can say I want to be a footballer when you have no idea in how we play ball, or you can't you can't say that you want to be a musician when you don't have the good voice to sing. So it requires certain talent or certain gift before you join such occupations. Then we have the length of training. There are certain occupations such as the medical field where the length of training it's a lot. You need to educate yourself for about 6, 7 years, what have you. So that length of training shows people off. Therefore, they will want to be in their present job or occupation. Then we have ignorance of jobs elsewhere. When you are ignorant about certain existence of job or certain vacancy, then how can you change your occupation to another occupation? So the fact that you are ignorant of certain jobs existing elsewhere will make you stay where you are. So that is the end of factors of production labor. This is the part 1. In my next video, we are going to continue from where we ended. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, you like, you share, and you leave a comment. Have a great day.